Serious, what's the scariest animal encounter you've personally experienced? I was kayaking alone, and I saw some baby gators on a tree that was in the water. The current was strongly pushing me towards it. I thought it would make a good photo, then I heard Mama Gator make an unforgettable roar. Never saw her, but grabbed the paddle quick and tried to get away as fast as I could. 1990, a flying cockroach chasing me in school. I laugh and sympathize. Done the same on several occasions with different bugs. Maybe June bugs. Either way, it's scary enough when it just flies in out of nowhere and starts buzzing around you, but it's much worse when you try to distance yourself and it follows. I love that everyone is sharing stories with alligators and all, and I'm just imagining you being chased by a cockroach in school hall, ha 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 ha. Guide on my first saltwater kayak trip with high school students. First real encounter with a grey whale. It surfaced about 4 to 5 feet away and just looked at me. I've been a fishing guide, canoe guide, ski guide, hiking and climbing guide. I've been by grizzly bears, cougars, real angry black bears and more squirrels than I can count. This giant, bus-sized whale scared me on an emotional level I have never felt before or since. Scarier than any wilderness emergency or animal encounter I have ever had. I sat alone in my boat, couldn't move or hear anything. Sat alone after night campfire solo, and thanked that beast for reminding me how small I really am. I love whales. I can understand that one. You feel vulnerable enough in open water without behemoths like that rising up from out of nowhere. Even just seeing it happen in videos freaks me out a bit. Additionally, I think we are just not conditioned to see living things that big moving about our personal space. It sets off all the alarms. Killbear Provincial Park in Ontario. Just washing up after eating dinner, bumming around the campsite, putting away things, etc. when I hear the woman in the campsite next to us say, "Honey, get the camera. There is a bear right behind our campsite." I turn my head, and not 8 feet behind me is a large black bear. I was terrified, but the bear just wandered off. Oh boy, I'd have a word with Honey and the missus about the proper way to alert people that there's a bear behind them. You see, while death stalking up on someone, your first thought shouldn't be about capturing the moment. Kill bear. I went there with my family a long time ago. It rained. And rained. And rained. How was the weather? My mom told me a story that they were camping in West Hawk, Manitoba, and my mom poured some tuna juice in a nearby bush. They woke up to a bear just outside of their tent. The park name is certainly appropriate. Not sure if it counts, but hitting a deer on the interstate going 70 was a pretty terrifying experience. Just hit my first deer 2 weeks ago. Well, technically she hit me. Either way, it was the loudest noise I think I've ever heard. It was terrifying. I watched them cross the road and assumed they were done. I started to drive off, and she came plowing into the side of me. I was only going like 10 miles per hour. $1,600 in damage to my truck. Not trying to one-up you, but I've driven nights for the past 25 years. Had so many close calls that isn't even funny. The first time I hit a deer, I hit two at the same time. They were standing side by side in my lane, and when I went to avoid them by driving into the other lane, they went into that lane. I was driving slower to begin with because it was raining, and when I hit them, I had slowed down to probably 35 miles per hour after braking. No damage to my full-size Ford Bronco other than one small panel under a headlight pushed in a tad and license plate bent up. I basically hit them and ran over their hind ends. Both died. Caught another close call on my dashcam. Ran over a small one on a private road in my lifted Jeep, was not intentional. Basically hit it with my bumper and ran it over. It died almost instantly. Note: I cropped out everything but the deer in my Jeep's hood in that pic. When I was like 7 years old, I was out walking my dog. This was usually not a problem, except that I ran into a hedgehog and my dog attacked it. I was not strong enough to pull him away, and he was hurting both the hedgehog and himself. All I could do was yell at him and cry, but he was dead set on killing that thing. Luckily a neighbor came walking by and pulled my dog away. The neighbor wasn't happy about the whole thing, and I'm pretty sure my parents got a pissy phone call later that day. TL. Dr. Dog attacked hedgehog. One time I and my sister were handing out raffle tickets door to door for a school fundraiser or something. I guess I was around 13. At one of our neighbors' houses, and the neighbors weren't unfriendly by any means. We walked up the driveway because we'd never had an issue with this before. Except this time, their dogs started barking loudly and running straight at us. We got out of the drive and about halfway down the road before they caught me and knocked me over, and one bit my hip ass. Managed to get away. I think it was more frightening than painful. My sister wasn't touched, and yet she's the one who grew a fear of dogs from that. Dog trainer here. I help people get over dog phobias, and the child who is bitten not being bothered long term and the sibling who witnessed it developing a phobia is something I have seen a few times. I suspect it is because they don't get the closure of the wound healing that the victim gets etc, and they don't get the same endorphins etc when the attack happens. For them it is a more cerebral experience, for the bitty it is a more immediate one perhaps. Dunno. Gentle desensitization fixes it anyway. Get her to try it if she is still afraid. Happy to offer suggestions if so. I've got two. Was out hunting with my brother-in-law and his nephew. It was a nice day, so we went swimming in a creek. All of a sudden my BL freezes and tells me don't move. I look around and there's a cottonmouth prob 5 feet away staring right at me. We slowly make our way away from it. A few years later I was living in Florida. I'm out in about 6 feet of water. I turn around to go back to shore and I see a shark swimming between me and the shore. No clue what breed, but it was at least 5 feet. That area is known for bull sharks, so I wasn't taking any chances. I waited and it got distracted by something else and swam away. I think you just need to avoid water entirely. I'm a bit thalassophobic, so that second story is a nightmare scenario. As soon as that thing swam away I'd flail frantically towards the shore screeching like a trapped howler monkey. We once had to rather promptly evacuate a campsite because an erratic skunk had wandered up. Either it was a normal skunk and we had to worry about the unholy terror that is skunk spray, or it was a rabid skunk and we had to worry about the unholy terror that is skunk spray and imminent death. That was fun. Who doesn't love a round of avoid the drunken stink them? That's bad enough normally, but camping? No showers? Terrible. I was younger, so I wasn't aware of the danger, but Pops and I were out hunting and popped through the trees into a little clearing maybe 30 feet around. On the other side was a huge bull moose with a rack at least 6 feet wide and a beard over a foot long. Pops just kinda put his arm in front of me and we backed away slowly, that or being followed by a bear or mountain lion. Not sure, for about a mile hiking at night in the Wind River range. That was pretty intense. Sounds like a mythical beast by the description lol, but definitely scary. Even if it was just grazing carelessly, being so close to something that big and mighty and durable has gotta be alarming. Why were you hiking at night? My buddy and I have a bad habit of heading out on adventures later than we planned. The Wind Rivers are about 4 hours from where we live, and we didn't leave home until about 5 p.m. So we got to the trailhead around 9:30 or so, had 6 miles to hike to camp. So we just hit the trail. We find ourselves hiking at night quite often. A cockroach decided to join me in the shower on holiday. I've never jumped out the shower faster than I did. I'm surprised I didn't slip. My boyfriend then killed it with the Holy Bible. I'm so lucky to have him. Jesus saves you from cockroaches. Lol, not exactly the scariest, but it's enough. Meeting one in the open, fully clothed, has enough nerve-wracking potential. Your reaction is justified. Grew up on the Gulf Coast. The roaches, water bugs down here, can get up to 3 to 4 inches long. And they fly. Coming across one of those in your home is a seriously traumatic experience. I bet. One's half to a quarter that big freaked me out. That's the stuff of nightmares. Are we talking roaches or actual water bugs, acatobiters? This happened when I was a kid. During a road trip, my family and I stopped at a rest area to stretch our legs. We each wandered around separately for a few minutes. I was in a clearing, alone, and saw a bear emerge from the woods to the other side of the clearing. I froze. It looked at me, then loped away. I went back to find my family and suggest we leave as soon as possible. And then he went back to his mom and said the same. Ha. Note to self to check out the rest stop before I let the tasty morsels roam it. Back when I was a night watchman many years ago, I'd run across lost or feral dogs that pack up. Had one pair of dogs go right after me as soon as I stepped out of a building. One was a Rottweiler. I made it back inside before they got to me. Note I've returned 7 lost dogs during that time, but the big breeds and packs or sometimes alone I won't even bother with. Once saw 2 pit bulls with jangly collars that I didn't bother with. Thankfully I was in a vehicle at the time and not on foot. I do a lot of walking in the out of doors for my job, and the only animals that I'm not that comfortable with are feral dogs and people. Around 3 years ago my friends and I went to Southern IL to do some hiking camping. I didn't really have any form of shoes suitable for it. I only had formal wear, but I did have a pair of steel-toed boots that I took. When we were down there, the boots didn't help in the hiking at all, except for when a snake bit the front of my right foot. Poor thing lost a fang to the steel tip. There are a lot of wildlife parks in Australia and they usually have free-range emus and kangaroos, which means they're allowed to wander around the park whenever they like. But emus are evil birds. For some reason, whenever they set eyes on me, they just bolt at me, and I end up running for my life. This has happened 3 times, at different parks, different ages, clothes. Save me. Save you? I haven't personally experienced that particular avian terror or Australia, but I know enough about the two to assure you that you're on your own, pal. I couldn't even imagine. Like the bird from Up, if it wasn't nice and made for children.